Greetings and welcome to today's webinar entitled IT Planning That Works, 3 Resolutions to Make Your EA Team Successful in 2010. At this time, all participants are in a listen-only mode. A brief question and answer session will follow the formal presentation. Please submit your questions using the WebEx chat feature. Names and companies will remain anonymous. If anyone should require operator or technical assistance during this conference, please press *0 on your telephone keypad. As a reminder, this conference is being recorded. It is now my pleasure to introduce your moderator, Uli Kalix. Thank you, Mr. Kalix. You may begin.
Thank you, Everett. Thanks, everyone, for joining today, this morning, this afternoon, wherever you are located. It's a pleasure talking to you today about our subject of resolutions to make the EA team successful in 2010. With me is David Ferry, who is a senior product manager at Alphabet, and my name is Ulrich Kalix, and I'm the VP of Product Line Management at Alphabet. With this, I'll start right into the topical discussion. At this time of the year, it is really about reflecting the past year, reviewing what has happened, and retrenching as to what is to come for the next year. And obviously, we are also used to coming up with resolutions as to how we are going to change our personal behaviors in the year to come. Today's webinar is going to focus on resolutions for the enterprise architecture team and what can they do better in 2010. Let's first take a little bit of time to reflect what the word resolution actually means. And there are 2 meanings in quite a history of different shades of meaning that this word has that we are particularly interested in for today's conversation. One is the reducing things to simpler forms. This is indeed what we are going to articulate today. How can we make things more actionable by reducing them to simpler forms? And the second one is really about finding solutions to problems that matter to the enterprise, and we will be establishing as to what are the problems that the enterprise architecture team need to work on in 2010. So what are the 3 resolutions that we are proposing to pursue to ensure enterprise architecture success, where we would reflect success as being valuable to the business? The first one to call out here is being relevant to the business. The second one is making sure that your enterprise architecture information is reliable. And the third one is really about getting your marching order, get your brass organized to play from the same sheet of music. Now, this is an interesting quote here as it highlights that more than the resolution itself, it is the reasoning behind the resolution that is of interest. And in fact, we will be talking to the reasons for the 3 resolutions that we have called out. We want to demonstrate why these reasons are so important, and we want to discuss how we can do better knowing about these reasons in the year to come. In fact, the reasoning part is going to be taken care of by my colleague, David Ferry, and at this time I'm handing over to him.
Yeah, hello from my side. I'd like to start with the first resolution, looking at the reasons to be relevant to the business. And I'd like to start by using this beautiful picture from John William Waterhouse, who was an English painter from the second half of the 19th century, earliest 20th century. And he focused a lot on mythological topics. And this picture is actually a picture of Narcissus and Echo. Narcissus is the guy looking at himself in the river, He was a handsome and somewhat vain youth who fell in love with his own reflection, and due to not being able to relieve that reflection, he ended up dying looking at himself. The other guy is Echo, or the woman is Echo, and she is a mountain nymph, and she liked the sound of her own voice, and she was punished by Zeus's wife, Hera, for something she did with Zeus, so that she could only actually repeat the things that other people said. And one day, walking through the woods of Greece, she actually bumped into Narcissus and sort of fell for him in a very big way. But he, being a handsome and somewhat vain youth, actually rejected her off the spot. And so she went into the mountains and pined away, and the only thing that was left was her voice, which is obviously the echo that we hear today when we're in the mountains and shout something. And I'd like to slightly adapt this picture to talk about the role between business, being the role of Echo, and IT, being Narcissus. And I think one thing that business sometimes sees or feels is that IT is just too busy with itself. Yeah, he's not listening to their needs, he's not listening to their strategies, he's too introspective and not really delivering on the things that they need. And this is actually a very dangerous situation for IT to be in, because business, unlike Echo, will not walk into the mountains and pine away. Business, in a best case, might just start ignoring the EA team and ignoring IT. In a worst case, it start talking about funding, and then it's a very dangerous situation. So basically, the main reason that we chose this resolution is because business quite often is thinking that EA does not deliver value. And we want to look at the reasons why business thinks this. The first one is that quite often business sees EA as focusing too much on the technology issues. If the EA team is just focusing on standardization of technologies, on policing technologies, or on creating the best meta model available in the world, they would not be focusing on the things that business is interested in. Business wants you to be thinking about their strategies. And this is the sort of thing that EA teams should focus on at least half of their time. The second issue is that EA quite often is not talking the language of business. Business wants to understand things like time to value, things like cost, things like risk. And you also have to find a semantics to talk to the business about the business. A common language that's understood by both. And this will not be a technical language. And the third issue that we often see in EA teams is that EA is not validating enough of the strategies. And this is sometimes a problem, because sometimes business is actually not saying their strategy. And this means engaging business and trying to document their strategies and saying, okay, is this right? And if you do not engage the business in this issue, then alignment will not occur. It cannot occur without knowing what their strategies are. And the last issue is it's not enough just to synchronize strategies and talk the same language. You also have to synchronize plans between IT and business. If IT is doing what business wants but gets there too late or too early, both of these things cause problems for business, and it will not be appreciated. So there's a synchronization issue. These are the main issues we see, and what I'd like to do now is hand over back to Uli for advice on how to address these things.
Thanks, David. So we now want to understand how we can be relevant to the business. One aspect is to really define business in business terms. That could mean defining a reference business architecture. It could mean defining the operating model for either the enterprise as such or parts thereof. It could mean defining a business capability model or business capability maps, as it is sometimes called. It is working with the business to identify inconsistencies in businesses' own plans and strategies. Because in the federated corporations that are typical nowadays, it is also likely that different business units are pursuing different strategies, different objectives that are either inconsistent with one another or outright in conflict. But it is also about identifying experts either within or outside the organization that can help mediating a broken relationship model between business and IT. It is about focusing on low-hanging fruit, such as project portfolio disentanglement, to identify projects that are either in conflict with one another, that are pulling into different direction. It could mean business capability assessment to understand which capabilities are critical to the organization vis-a-vis the ones that are not all that critical. And it could also reflect strategy operationalization, so as to taking strategy from the board level where it is typically articulated down to the trenches of the organization and make them actionable. Customer examples in that context are plentiful. So capability management is something that has really taken ground a lot in telecommunications industry, in the financial services industry. Coming up with what some call strategy on a page for a business unit is something that many organizations are embarking on as we are speaking. Now, here's an example of what it could mean speaking the language of business. Business capabilities, and that's a quote here from a research paper from Forrester, business capabilities are defining an organization's capacity to successfully perform a unique business activity. In that sense, they are building blocks of the business architecture itself. And business capabilities typically are defined in a telescoping fashion, meaning you can drill down from higher levels of granularity to more detail. What you can see here at the bottom of the slide is a representation showing capabilities on top level and their subordinate capabilities in the columns. Now, what is interesting in this representation is that it doesn't stop at just showing the capabilities and their interrelationship, but it actually adds key performance or key quality characteristics on top of it. So, for instance, the size of the boxes refers to the cost of IT support associated with enabling this capability. The color would represent strategic importance, and the little indicator in the upper right-hand corner indicates the volatility characteristic for this capability. So, for instance, you can see that product retirement is a capability that is pretty costly as pertaining to the IT support cost. It is not really of high importance from a strategic perspective, yet it is pretty volatile as it seems to be changing quite frequently. So that in itself is providing an ability for business and IT to jointly discuss how can we improve on the key performance characteristics for this seemingly unimportant capability. So in summary, besides understanding just the capabilities themselves, it is important to understand how they are interrelated to one another. It is important which are strategically relevant versus the ones that are not. And it is important which need improvement, be it from a cost perspective or be it from a market perspective or be it from a quality perspective. Here's another example on demonstrating how one can talk to the language of the business. It shows for a specific business process marketing analysis and a bunch of organizational entities that are busy executing this business process, how IT is lined up supporting this business process in said organizational entity. And what you can see is how that changes over time. What you can also see is by virtue of the little indicator as to whether or not it is strategy compliant. That gives, again, a very easily comprehensible perspective as to how business and IT are aligned along the strategies and the roadmap that both have set out for themselves. So at this point, I'm handing back to David, who is going to talk about the second of our resolutions, which is making enterprise architecture information more reliable.
Yeah, and for the second resolution, make EA information reliable. And first I'd like to talk about the word reliable. Here we're talking about current. The information has to be up to date and contextual. It has to be in the context of business and also contextual within also how the IT is performing currently. And this also has to be comprehensive. And here it has to be comprehensive enough to fulfill solving the problems that business and IT are currently having. We wouldn't say try to document everything immediately. There's a certain level of comprehensiveness that needs to be reached so that you can actually provide the value to the business. And to actually look at this resolution, I'd like to use an analogy that's often used, and that's the analogy of the city planner. And here we have a city planner for New York. And we realize that some of you probably have application landscapes and IT landscapes that are probably as complicated and also as dynamic as New York. And you're trying to solve some of the sort of problems that this city planner is also solving. Yeah, he will have a business strategy. This could come from the mayor. This could be something like make the city green. This is something that Michael Bloomberg is pushing. Recently he announced ideas for a wind farm off Manhattan to generate something like 750 megawatts of electricity a year. It could also be a goal to increase tourism for a particular area or to increase the attractiveness for families of a certain residential area. Yeah, this is a business strategy. And he has to work on how can I plan changes to the city to fulfill that business strategy. And to do that, he needs to understand a lot of things. He has to understand where are the buildings, what state are they in, what maintenance costs do they have, how do they interact to each other, how do they interact with the environment, are there green areas near the buildings, and also what is the business context, who owns them, who is using them, and for what purpose. Are they residential buildings? Are they retail buildings? Are they office space? These sort of questions. Yeah, so the basic need for the city planner is for information so he can actually do his job. And this is the basic reason that we see for actually needing E8 information to be reliable. If it's reliable, then the city planner and also the EA team can make good decisions, they can be decisive, and they can also be agile in their planning because their information is up to date. To actually get this sort of information, you need various things. One, you need actually the contributions from the property owners and the investors, the people who actually own and maintain these buildings or portfolios of these buildings. Yeah, if you don't get their information on what they're doing with those buildings, it makes your planning job really difficult. So you need to get these people to provide information. And one of the ways of doing that is obviously giving back information. Maybe giving back information about the environment around their buildings or giving them benchmarking information on buildings. The second issue that you have, or the second approach you could have, is actually trying to collect the information from utility companies. People like the electricity company, the water company, the gas company. If you do this, you will get some information. If you're looking at energy, you'll understand something of the energy profile of these buildings. You'll also know where the buildings are. But you will not know the business context. You will not know why they're being used, and you probably won't know the maintenance state of these buildings. Just collecting information from the utilities alone is not enough. It's something that won't work. And this is similar to some EA teams we've seen where they've tried to just collect the information from the CMDB or collect it from other sources already there. The sources already there don't usually have the business context, and this is needed. This is required, and this you can only get through the contributions from the property owners and the investors. The other issue is that we've seen EA teams trying to send out Excel sheets to all the people who own things, collect those Excel sheets and try and analyze the information. This would be similar to a city planner who tries to send a formula to all building owners and to ask them for the information on how their building is being used and what it's costing and getting all that information back and trying to analyze it. If the city planner does this, he will spend his time gathering and analyzing information. And by the time he delivers the result, much of that information will also be out of date. And this is a problem that also EA teams have, and it has to be addressed. And a last issue here, in terms of the information, is that the type of information that a city planner has is very multidimensional. It has a lot of different dimensions in terms of costs, in terms of location, in terms of relationship to business. It also needs different perspectives on that information. And trying to manage that with an MS Office tool like Excel or with an MS Access database or with an architecture model just does not work. You need the proper tool for this city planning job, and it's exactly the same that an enterprise architecture team needs the proper tool for his job. So what I'd like to do now is hand back to Uli, who would give you some tips on how to actually tackle this issue of getting reliable information.
Thanks, David. Okay, so the first thing that we notice is that one needs to be clear as to what is the information that is required here. And what we are proposing to enterprise architecture teams is really starting from the problem, then understanding the process that is required to solving the problem, deriving the information requirements from that problem resolution process, and associating responsibilities and stewardship models with the information that has been identified as critical. And that is much like we all know about Rudy, the red-nosed reindeer, who understands it has a clear responsibility, which is guiding Santa's sleigh through snow and fog. Using processes for problem resolution is not enough. It also is required to establish processes for information management, and the more we can automate such processes, the better. And that gives rise to leveraging information management capabilities such as monitors, such as workflows, such as automated notifications or alerts, or wizards, to enabling and streamlining these information management processes so they take as little time as necessary in the day-to-day activities of the different responsibles. As a matter of the fact, and as David has explained with the example of New York, the information is widespread across the enterprise, and each holder of information typically has a rather limited reach and potentially knows about the direct neighborships he is regularly in contact with, but it does not provide for the closely knit net on top of the enterprise that would really connect all the dots that exist. Again, a few custom examples that spring to mind in that context. One would be an application sign-off process. For instance, in the context of a Sarbanes-Oxley compliance requirement or of a risk management requirement. Another one would be business data landscape management, along with an understanding as to which important business objects are created, updated, or deleted in which of the information management systems in the enterprise. And a third one would be collaborative strategy operationalization again, making sure that the responsibility is managed across the enterprise, because taking that strategy from the 30,000-foot level that the board of directors typically defines it on to an actionable level that John and Joe down in the trenches can work with needs a lot of collaboration across the enterprise. Here's a sample plan to address the information management challenge that I just articulated. It is stakeholder focused in the sense that the roles that are involved and that have to contribute are clearly identified. It is process-centric as it articulates what activities need to be carried out by whom and at what stage in the process. It is results-driven as it articulates what outcomes are going to be generated at which step of this overall process. And it's generating immediate benefits. For instance, which applications are SOX relevant and how do they meet compliance requirements for the example of application sign-off processes I made earlier. Or where are business data or business objects that are used redundantly, which would result in inconsistencies and suboptimal business decisions? Or which strategies are backed by the current project portfolio and which aren't in the context of the strategy operationalization example I made. I already highlighted the importance of information and its current nature and the comprehensiveness of the information. Here's another aspect that I'd like to highlight, which is serving relevant information to the right stakeholders at the right time in the process. Again, that's a great chance for high degrees of automation because this improves repeatability, it improves traceability, and it stimulates transparency of the decision making. Let's talk a few seconds about the representation that we see here on the slide. It shows a capability, in this case it's delivery. It shows a capability to the responsible person for that capability, summarizing some of the key aspects around this capability, such as quality indicators, such as cost information, here broken out by budget versus request cost. Could also be this year's cost versus last year's cost, or it could be operating cost versus investment cost, whatever would be the right perspective here. Another aspect would be something like a health status indicator. In this case, it is an application aging indicator representing obsolescence of technology that is being used to enabling these subordinate capabilities. And then fourthly, we are looking at the relevant subset of the project portfolio that is addressing needs of that specific business capability delivery. Again, this is a representation that is easily comprehensible, easily understandable by anyone within the business organization or the IT organization, and thus is a great means of mitigating and facilitating conversation between these two camps. So at this point, I'm passing back to David again, who is going to embellish on the third of our resolutions involving stakeholders in the IT planning process.
Yeah, thanks, Uli. So this last resolution involves stakeholders in the IT planning process. I'd like to use this somewhat cute picture here of two dogs out in the snow, feeling a bit cold, maybe a bit hungry, looking inside to the kitchen, hoping somebody will open the door and give them a Christmas sausage or something. And I'd like to use this picture just to emphasize the fact that in terms of the IT planning process, it's not good to be on the outside looking in. The IT planning process is an important process, and there are important stakeholders that have to be involved, and one of those is EA. And if EA is on the outside looking in terms of the IT planning process, then they're already in a dangerous position, because this means that the people who are doing the IT planning, and that would be IT management and business management, do not think they're relevant and do not think they're delivering value to the planning process. So that would be something I would certainly recommend addressing quickly. Because EA has an important role to play in the IT planning process. Depending on the organization, they may own the process, or it might be owned somewhere else in the PMO office or an IT strategy office near to the CIO. But one thing's for sure, the EA and their deliverables, when brought together with the PMO office and their deliverables will ensure a very good IT planning capability and process. And this is something that Gartner says, and it's something that Gartner actually emphasized when they chose planning IT and Alphabet as a cool vendor in the enterprise architecture space. The role that EA has is, some of the roles are things like owners of very important quality stage gates in the planning process. For example, the validation of alignment to strategy, to business strategy of IT projects. This is something that EA should be doing. Or the architectural governance issues in terms of, are the solution architectures that are being planned, do they match to IT strategy? So EA has an important role to play. But another thing to remember is it's not only EA that might be out in the cold. There might be other stakeholders outside that should be involved in the planning process in some way, but aren't currently, and have important perspectives on the planning. This could be somebody like an application domain architect or a technology domain owner. So the first basic statement here I'd like to say is that if these different stakeholders aren't involved in the IT planning, then the planning will actually fail. And there are various different reasons that it will fail. The first one is actually to do with involving the business side in the IT planning. If they're not involved in the IT planning process, they will not buy into the IT plans. They will not sponsor them. They might pay for them, but even if they pay for them, during the year they will probably be critical, and they will probably say that IT does not know where they're going. And getting business to buy in onto the IT planning is one of the most fundamental and important things that an IT organization has to do. The second issue is that what happens if EA is on the outside? If EA is on the outside, then there's a lack of business intelligence going into the planning. If the PMO office is doing this alone, then quite often they will be just considering the planning of resources and finance and skills. But you actually need to also to have the information on, okay, how is the architecture, how is the current architecture, how can we get to a future architecture view, and are there conflicts there, and views on alignment to business strategy. And if this is not there, then also the planning will also fail. And another perspective that might come from an application domain architect or from a technology domain architect or from a business analyst, if that is not involved in the IT planning process, then there will probably end up being gaps or conflicts in the IT planning that aren't seen until execution. And this can cost a lot of money in for IT and for business in trying to correct these errors. So it's important to get as many people involved, or the right people involved, in the IT planning process. And just one side note, important to IT planning is generating roadmaps that show different perspectives. Roadmaps that show a perspective for business on when IT is delivering support for certain process or capability, perspectives for an application rollout. Yeah, these perspectives are important. If you're maintaining these roadmaps manually, then this will cost, one, a lot of effort and also lead to errors. So it's good to be thinking of ways you can actually do this without drawing the roadmaps. So for tips on this, I'd like to pass you back to Uli Kalix, and he'll be giving you input and ideas on this.
Thanks, David. So if we're looking at how IT planning is done today, it is very much, and in most cases, a disruptive approach. It's an act of heroes, and it's oftentimes taking excessive amount of time and energy. We all know this, that after 3 months of planning exercise, the organization is just happy to be through this and is not anywhere close to redoing this anytime soon again. What actually has to happen in the future, and that is very similar to other areas in enterprise, like manufacturing, like delivery, like sales and operations, it needs to turn into a continuous process, into a collaborative process, and it needs to focus on the ability to replan. Because the ability to replan is equally important as the ability to come up with a good plan in the first place. Again, that's a learning that in most organizations, the peers in business domains such as delivery or sales have made during the course of the last 10 years, and they have greatly advanced in their abilities to replan over that period of time. Now, making IT planning a process actually allows for applying the principles of process improvement, or Six Sigma, as many call it these days, to that very process, which means measuring performance, measuring variability, and closing a feedback loop as to how that can improve over time. Being relevant and aligned to business means we have to start from the strategy, we have to start from the business architecture, and we have to relate the different items and entities on the IT plan to business strategy and business architecture. Which also means avoiding situations where the IT plan is articulated as certain budget allocations to certain cost centers that have no meaning and relevance to IT, or to certain changes in technology, upgrading from this type of technology to this other type of technology. Again, customer examples are pretty plentiful here. Architecture-focused project approval process is one. And it is a process that would allow for the enterprise architecture team to really stay on top of the stage gates that they are responsible for. Stage gates such as strategy alignment validation, which David mentioned just a minute ago, or a stage gate such as the architectural approval, which would include alignment validation against the IT standards and technology roadmap, but it would also include waiver processing for the use of technologies or platforms that are not permitted or only permitted in exceptional situations. Another example, and I'm coming back to one that I've used a couple of times already, would be this collaborative strategy operationalization, which again allows for business to have full visibility and full traceability as to which items on the IT project portfolio are supporting critical business strategies and which are not. And in turn also allow to understand which of the business strategies, which of the objectives for business are not backed up by any of the items in the IT project portfolio. Now, this is showing how the IT planning process may look like in reality. You can see here along the vertical how the IT planning process breaks down into critical sub-processes. And obviously this is not a comprehensive list, it is merely a sample list. So demand and strategy process would be one example. Program portfolio process would be another one. And IT financial or cost management processes would be a third one that in many situations enterprise architecture teams are not really staying on top of. Along the horizontal, we have critical roles that need to be involved in this process. And as you can see here, it involves business leadership as much as IT leaderships, as well as core IT functions such as enterprise architects and application owners. So what is really needed here to drive this IT planning process is a collaborative IT planning platform. You can see the different stakeholders that are involved here, both originating from core IT functions as well as from within the business. And what they need to be supported with is role-based access, is workflow-enabled processes, allowing for high degrees of automation. It is a central information repository so that all decisions are taken from the same current comprehensive, and reliable information base. It means providing business-related views so that the right stakeholders have the right information at hand at the right juncture in the process execution. It also requires collaboration aids such as discussion groups or notifications or assignments for managing this complex and widespread community. And lastly, it requires data quality enablers, and that circles back to the resolution number 2, which was enterprise architecture teams need to make sure that there is reliable enterprise architecture information available at all times. Now, all this is enabled through our platform, Planning IT, and obviously we are very happy and eager to take up any conversations around this at a later point in time, so that is wished. With this, I'm handing back to David, who is going to wrap our discussion today.
Yeah, I'll be wrapping the discussion for Christmas. And I'd like to do that and start by just repeating the 3 resolutions and reminding us what they're about. The first one is to be relevant to the business. And here it's about understanding the value that business is looking for and the value that EA can deliver to them and bringing these into match. Yeah, and the more value you're delivering, the more business is going to be happy with the EA. The second resolution is about making sure your EA information is reliable. The EA information is a critical resource of business intelligence. And if this is reliable, then the EA team will gain a lot of trust. And it helps them to be seen as also value deliverers. This supports the first resolution. And the third resolution is involving all stakeholders in the IT planning process. And here it's about getting buy-in. You want business, you want the different stakeholders in IT to actually buy into your plan. What you also really want them to is to feel that it's their plan as much as yours, because that way they'll be as committed to it. And so buy-in is a very important aspect. The thing to remember about resolutions is that they're easy to make but not necessarily easy to stick to, as our little laughing horse here reminds us with this Mexican proverb that a good resolution is like an old horse, often saddled but rarely ridden. So what we'd like to do is to give you some input about how to actually stick to your resolution, how to actually make your resolution work. And here we'd like to introduce our roadmap to EA success, which is the 3-step roadmap. And the first one is actually very closely related to the first resolution, which is being relevant to the business. And here it's about understanding where business is at the point in time that you're at. Yeah? Are they doing an M&A? Are they involved in cost reduction, need some sort of application consolidation? Are they trying to open up a new business model and need some business-driven initiative? Or are they looking to coordinate plans better with IT? They need some good road mapping. Yeah, where is the business? When you've worked that out, then you can concentrate the scope of your EA program first on that initial demand. The second thing to do is then to select a short-term roadmap that delivers value quickly on that demand. And to do that, Alphabet actually has a set of 8-week roadmaps for each of these different types of demands, in which we reuse a lot of best practices that our clients have been using, both the large and small clients. And with this best practice, it helps you to deliver quicker. And these roadmaps are focusing on issues like what sort of data do you need for that demand, which stakeholders need to be involved, and what deliverables do you need to deliver. And the third step is obviously to execute. And if you execute your short-term roadmap and deliver value to the business, you'll get management buy-in. And management buy-in means funding. And to help you execute, as Uli said, we have a platform, Planning IT, for this. But it's not just about executing one program. It's about executing or reaching an EA practice which is mature and which is seen as strategic and a partner to the business. And to do this, if you were actually starting an EA program, at the beginning, you'd probably focus all your efforts on understanding the situation. Where is business? Where is IT? What is the state of my EA program? Yeah, and very quickly, though, you have to start delivering value. And this means shifting up and delivering on different 8-week programs or 12-week programs, each of which delivers value to the business. But at the same time, it's also building up your strategic EA discipline by building up more data in terms of depth and width, and by building up more deliverables. Yeah, so that in the long term, you actually end up being the strategic IT practice you want to be. And to do this, you need to deliver 8-week programs. The good thing is that if you start now and deliver your first 8-week program or 12-week program, then you'll have something to deliver to the business by Easter, which is good news. So at this point, I'd like to wrap up. But before doing that, I'd like to actually hand over to Sierra to see what questions have been coming in on our Q&A. Sierra, what questions do we have?
Yes, thank you, David. A number of questions have come in. This first question is for Uli. What information should be on a roadmap, ideally?
That really depends on the focus that the enterprise has, and that means specifically that the business has in the enterprise. So there could be a variety of information that is relevant here. One would be which capabilities need supporting, which capabilities need improvement in the shorter or longer term, which in and by itself would be a roadmap. Another one would be how is business support needing to change over the course of time in supporting critical business processes or critical business capabilities as and when executed in certain organizations. That would also come hand in hand in the context of a application consolidation situation that the business may be in, which would mean how can we better harmonize the support that we are providing to our business partners in a multifaceted organization such as one that would own numerous plants or that would run a complex internationally distributed sales organization, where oftentimes the different plants or the different sales organizations would be using different IT solutions, either grounds up or different configurations of the same IT solution because of historical reasons. And the third example that I want to strike here is really the one for the roadmap pertaining to the critical portfolio of IT or business IT projects. Understanding when deliverables are coming and how these deliverables are aligning with the change in capabilities and with the improvement along key performance indicators that has business set for itself.
Okay, thank you. My second question is for David. You talk about the need to have comprehensive information. That sounds like a lot of work in order to get that data. How much data gathering can be automated?
I think I'd like to start off actually by talking about the comprehensive data. I think the important thing here is to select the right data for the right issue. You don't need to have all this data there at the beginning. It's one of the things we talked about by executing different roadmaps, 8-week roadmaps, and with each one you're actually delivering new deliverables, but also gathering more data. In terms of automation, some of the data you can get by automation in terms of being able to pick it up from some of the sources in the enterprise, but other information you will actually only get out the heads of people, such as the actual business context of an application. But this can be automated in a different way by using workflows to implement processes which maintain that data. And I think probably with these two methods, you can actually automate most of the data gathering.
Okay, thank you. This next question is also for you, David. What kinds of processes would help ensure data quality?
I think there's various processes, and they're at different levels, I think, in terms of, complexity of process. The most simple or basic is actually just having processes which ask for information and ask for information to be confirmed, to be validated. And these can be short workflows that just go to the responsible people for an application or for a technology and ask them to either fill out the information or to validate the information. And this is a good way of getting the basic information maintained. And we actually see also some people using the stick of Sarbanes-Oxley and other sorts of compliance regulations to actually justify these sort of workflows. Another level that we see is also workflows that support architectural governance, such as the request for and the approval of new technologies, or the request for a certain architecture for an application and the approval of that. Yeah, by having this request for, you actually get data put into the system, which is then maintained during the approval process. And another level, a third level, is the actual IT planning process itself, where you're actually going from understanding strategy and demand to the actual approval of projects. And during this process, many of these objects within the enterprise architecture continuum will actually be either defined or maintained and have their life cycles planned and then approved. And with this, you're actually maintaining data.
Okay, thank you, David. Now we have another question for Uli. Uli, who actually owns the IT planning process?
That's an interesting question because there is no simple answer to this. The function that owns the IT planning process may vary from organization to organization. Today, because IT planning is oftentimes simply focused on finances, it is often the IT finance organization, the controlling organization within the IT that owns the plan. As we are moving more to a business IT alignment focused planning process, it is going to shift to either the IT strategy organization. Many organizations actually have an IT planning organization that they are starting to build, or it may actually be owned by the enterprise architecture team. That doesn't mean that either of these teams is owning the process end to end. It is really, this organization would be responsible to orchestrate the process, to make sure the process is executed thoroughly and completely and without hiccups. But many different functions within the IT organization as well as within the business need to partake and contribute to this process being successful, which is why it is so important to supporting this process through a solid platform and striving for high degrees of automation that would allow automatically triggering the contribution of various individuals or functions, that would allow automatically determining in which situations decisions can be shortcut versus in which situations they may have to go to a board, be it an investment board or be it an architecture board, and get a consensus decision for such plan to be moved into execution.
Thank you. Okay, I'd like to get in one more question at least, and that's a question for Uli. In one of the slides, you define EA success as being of value to the business. When do you know when you're actually delivering value to the business?
Interesting question. I think you go out and ask business. That would be my immediate reflex. But honestly speaking, you will know when business is going to approach you and trying to articulate their problems and their challenges to you. That is typically the best sign for them recognizing you as an important contributor to solving business's own problem, which actually is the situation that almost every IT organization should be striving for, because otherwise it is very questionable as to why the IT is part of the enterprise altogether and not being run as an outsourced service provisioning model.
Okay, thanks very much, Uli. We have a number of other questions, but unfortunately we are out of time now, so I'm going to hand this back to Uli.
Thank you, Sarah. I sincerely thank everyone who joined this afternoon, this morning, and I wish all of you happy holidays. It was a pleasure talking to you today, and we are looking forward to more engagements in the year to come. And with this, I'm handing it back to the income operator.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. This concludes today's teleconference, and you may disconnect your lines at this time. Thank you for your participation.